Hello, hello, hello. Okay, that's better. Okay. Okay, good evening. The Charter Township of Plymouth Board of Trustees regular meeting will convene at 7 o'clock. Call to order, Mr. Clerk.
Trustee Stewart.
Here.
Trustee Monahan.
Here.
Clerk Vorva here. Trustee Dorshevitz.
Here.
Trustee Kermy.
Here.
Treasurer Clinton.
Here.
Supervisor Heisey.
Here.
All present. We have a quorum.
Okay, we have a special guest tonight, Nancy Vorva, the wife of Jerry. Yes, this is your life.
Father
And you are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Yes, you will.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, before we get going, I just want to make a quick statement. I think that municipal audits are always very exciting, but I have a hunch that most people are not here to witness the audit presentation tonight. So let me give an update on the tree ordinance. First of all, we will not be voting on anything tonight. The tree ordinance is not on the agenda. The agenda was put together Friday morning, and the literature was stuck to your mailboxes sometime over the weekend. So they got that wrong. I do not know when the tree ordinance will be coming back to the board. I will be meeting tomorrow with our township attorney and planner. We're on version number 3 or 4 right now, and just to let you know that we've been incorporating a lot of the recommendations from my colleagues up here and also from our township staff and from many of you. So thank you very much. If you emailed us with suggestions, we are certainly taking all of that into consideration. I don't want to overhype the changes right now, but I think some of the more significant ones is, no permits to plant a tree, no permits to trim a tree, although I don't know if that was really in there to begin with. No criminal penalties, no fines in any kind of a civil procedure sense. So right now, I think that the thing that we're kind of still struggling with is the whole issue of clear cutting by developers, clear cutting by folks who are putting in large businesses like we saw with Wabasto, and we've had some other cases in town as well. So what do we do with the large developers, and what do we do with smaller developments as well? So clear cutting, and also then this whole issue of heritage trees, which are basically old trees that have a circumference of 18 inches or more. What do we do with those? Might be a decision that we don't do anything with them. But I think the draft ordinance that will come out, hopefully I'll present it to the board next week via email, will take into consideration a lot of the comments and questions that they had, as well as trying to address some of those other nagging issues. It also provides a little bit more, I think a lot more leeway to the building director, and gives him or her much more say in what kind of instances we might employ a tree ordinance. So I don't want to deter anybody, but we've only got the one item on the agenda tonight. There will be public comment, though, at the beginning of the meeting for 3 minutes. There'll be public comment at the end of the meeting for 3 minutes. Otherwise, I cannot say with certainty if or when the tree ordinance will come back for a first reading or even for additional review, but probably not until July or August. We have a very busy agenda still in June. We have a meeting on June 22nd, and that agenda is already full at this time. Okay, so I need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Clerk.
I move for the approval of the agenda for Tuesday, June 8th, 2021.
Okay, motion's made by Clerk Vorba. Is there a
Second.
second? Second by Trustee Monahan. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, I need all those in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, item D is approval of the consent agenda. Comments or questions? Hearing none, anybody?
I move we approve the consent
Okay.
agenda.
Motion's made by Trustee Monahan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Clerk Vorba. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Very good. Okay, public comment limited to 3 minutes. Anybody at this time? Yes.
Hello, my name is Eileen Coleman. And I'll just read. I got this in my mailbox. So it's about the tree ordinance. I hadn't heard anything about it, so there wasn't any public notification. So, wow. So I read the ordinance and I'm like, you've got to be kidding. Unbelievable. So here's what I'll say. Several days ago, our neighborhood received a notice regarding a tree ordinance for the Township of Plymouth. Thank you to whoever delivered that notification. Many questions arose centering around private property and the freedom that flows from our ownership of such property. My concerns centered around the role of local government and the limitations that must be defended in relation to the care of one's land. This is why our property is private property. The government does not own our land. The private property owner has the right to decide landscaping, gardening, and tree care. It is, after all, their land. My question to the board is, who owns my land? Do I or any private property owner own our land? This ownership limits what a government can do, and this is central when making decisions for ordinances for trees. If you would like to be entrusted with the care of the trees on my property, you must first purchase the right to that property with the payment of my taxes. My question to the board is, what do you think private property means? The use of one's land is central to freedom. The property owner can decide how many trees to plant or not plant. They own their land. The property owner can decide to replace trees or not. They own their land. The property owner can decide to cut down a diseased tree or treat it. They own their land. The property owner can decide to take down a tree to allow more sun in their yard. They own their land. The property owner can decide to plant all new trees. They own the land. The property owner can take down a tree to avail space for a garden. They own the land. The property owner can take down a heritage tree that is partially diseased for fear that it may damage his or her roof. They own the land. The property owner might fail to care for their land perfectly. They might be weak sometimes. They own their land. This proposed ordinance seems to force government control. Government will on the people. Should a local government impose an ordinance with fees and fines to get compliance to control the use of one's land? Does this ordinance consider the financial impact on people's lives? Many of my neighbors were quick to ascertain that this was about money. And I question you, what is the motive for all the fees, fines, penalties of this ordinance? Have you thought of the financial implications for your constituents? Have you thought of the economic state of affairs in your community? Do you know we're just getting through a pandemic? Are you aware of the stresses on people's families? Most people in this beautiful township of Plymouth have beautiful properties that they have managed independent of government intervention. They are motivated to care for their own property.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else at this time? Well, he beat you to it.
I've been informed that Trustee Stewart has been posting that citizens that speak at board meetings are clowns and the board meetings are a circus. This really offends me. Trustee Stewart posted a lie about me, calling me a liar for simply posting the tree ordinance obtained from the Plymouth Township website. I feel Trustee Kermy needs to apologize for this disgusting behavior. We're still waiting for his apology for calling us domestic terrorists. Thank you.
Trustee Kermy has to apologize for that? Get your scripts right.
You said Kermy, not Stewart.
Stewart. I didn't say Kermy.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, I take
All
that
right.
back. Trustee
All
Stewart.
right, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You shot me.
Good evening, all. My name's Walt Coleman. I live in West Briar subdivision. I have to pass Mr. Kermy's house several times a day.
You mean
on the way
Mr.
to and from work and that.
Heisey.
I'm sorry, Mr. Heise. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Everybody's.
It's all your fault. It's all your fault, Kermy, I'm telling you.
I stand corrected.
Wait, I'm Chuck Kirby. I don't like you.
Yeah.
I'm offended.
So I've lived in the community here for just a hair over 57 years. I was practically born here. During the May 25th meeting, and by the way, of course, you're making your amendments now and everything, but I'm going to speak to what the public knows as of right now when this thing was proposed.
Okay.
During the May 25th board meeting, Supervisor Heisey and Planner Ha presented the proposed tree ordinance. It was represented as a codified version of the city plan, and a statement was made by Mr. Heisey that he reviewed it with the city before presenting it. Why? Don't answer that right now.
Oh, okay.
It's
Sorry.
striking to me that this proposal is already in the form that could go into effect at any time during the current calendar year. See the last page. Yet, during the course of the meeting, Mr. Heisey stated that he didn't support several clauses and that it was just a starting point. Odd, very odd that this comes to this level of completion, and yet you weren't even happy with the way it was put together. That's poor. Oddly, you would think that basic points regarding community safety, invasive species, threats to costly infrastructure would be the initial focus, with the needs of the community driving the expansion of the proposed ordinance from there. Rather, the supposed first draft is presented in draconian form, where the emperor demands the sun from his subjects, but will settle for the moon. The proposal appears to be one created for public lands that has been adapted to the private sector, all but eliminating personal property rights with the mere stroke of a pen. At every turn in Division 4, the administrative and effort section, there's nothing but wall-to-wall outlining of required permits, undeniable access to the property, punishable fine minimums. Yes, they start at $500, and even a severability section, Section 5, that allows the listed 28 sections as standalone clauses that, if removed, would allow the remaining sections to remain, so that anyone who dared challenge the proposed ordinance in court it would have to be done in piecemeal, at the most minimal degree, a sort of reverse incrementalism. All legal challenges would not only cost the challenging individuals for attorney fees, but would cost the rest of us, the taxpayers, to defend it. Truly a lose-lose scenario if there ever was one. Moreover, per Section 4, the repeal, all other ordinances not supporting this one fall to it. Do we know what they are? Did you list them?
Your time is rapidly coming to an
Curiously,
end.
Section 9.28 through 98.5 are reserved. What does this mean? This document is in the form that, once again, at the stroke of a pen can become law.
Okay.
Odd, Mr. Heisey boasts of having
You're going to have to wrap it up.
but he's decided a variable
You'll
blank check
you'll have three
from
more
his
minutes at the end of the
constituency.
meeting. I have to
What
be
is
fair to
missing
other
from this
people.
document that's outlined in these sections is akin to Nancy
Your time is
Pelosi's
up.
logic.
Your time
You
is
have
up.
to pass it to get it and to
Your
understand
time
it.
is up. Thank you.
Yeah, fortune for you.
Okay. All right, anybody else? All righty, we're going to move on then to the audit. We still have a new sound system here, folks, so bear with me. I don't know if Ken is aware of the reverberations.
Just back up.
Okay. Okay, so I will, well, Bob's got it. Okay. How does that sound? Who's in the back?
Are you plugging him in? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Martin Olejnik is here with us tonight, and he is our lead partner from Plant Moran. They do our audits. And tonight we have the fiscal year 2020 audit presentation and approval. And also joining Martin tonight is our, I know you want to create disruption and chaos, Mr. Zantop, but okay, we're trying to hold a meeting here, you know. So anyway, with Mr. Olejnik tonight is Ginger Moriarty, who is our finance director. We also have our deputy finance director, Carol Roshan. And so Ginger and Carol have been the leaders in the whole audit effort this season. We could not have done it without you. You guys have done an absolutely outstanding job, especially given the challenges faced by COVID and the extra federal audits that we had to do because we received COVID funding. So I'm stealing some of your show here, I know.
Part of my show.
But we cannot, this is like the Academy Awards. I want to thank everybody from Plant Moran, Ginger, Carol Roshan, Martin Olejnik, Carrie Shea, who is your other partner who cannot be here tonight, Mark Clinton, Deputy Treasurer Amy Hammy, and of course Jerry Vorva, because the finance department comes out of the clerk's office. That's the separation of powers in township government. And so it's really a tremendous team effort. And I want to thank all of you guys. This probably will not be the only time tonight that we do that. It has been told, I have heard through the grapevine, that this is possibly the cleanest audit that you have administered in recent memory for Plymouth Township. Is that a fair statement?
I would have to agree.
Okay, awesome, excellent. So without any further ado, I will hand it over to Martin, and then I would just encourage board members to just hold their comments as we proceed through this, because it's going to be the slideshow, right? So if we could maybe, you know what, forget I said that. We can ask questions on each individual slide as they come up. That way we're not having to backtrack continuously.
Fine.
Okay, take it away.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for making all the introductions too, so stole a little bit of my thunder. There is quite a few documents we're going to go through. I was going to focus on the graphs, as you pointed out. I did want to mention that this was the second year in a row that the audit was done virtually versus in person, which provides a lot of different obstacles for both the township as well as the firm. However, I feel like it went relatively flawlessly. Just overall, the help that we received from the township was second to none, and we were able to deliver on time. So just like in the past, we're delivering the report, and it's being presented to you the first week or the first meeting in June. And not only is the financial statement being presented, but also the single audit, which is the federal grants report, that's being presented as well. Technically, the federal awards, you have 9 months from the year end, but it's actually being done earlier. And I'm happy to report too that both the financial statement and the opinion letter that's in the financial statements, which is the thickest of the documents that you have on page 1 and 2, has a clean opinion, which we call an unmodified opinion. What that means is that based on our testing, you can rely on the information that's presented within the financial statements. You can use it for budgeting and various purposes. So it's something that you should expect every year to receive an unmodified opinion. And once again, that's what you're receiving. And in addition to that, the single audit, there were no findings related to the single audit. So again, it's something that you should be very proud of, that there's no deficiencies or anything like that were noted. So with that, I'm gonna go to the graphs. And then after that, I was gonna cover the post-audit letter. And as the supervisor mentioned, feel free to stop me if you have any questions or anything like that.
Because we do have a new sound system, I would just caution the board that if you're going to keep your microphone on, just don't rustle papers or anything, because this system picks up everything.
On the first slide, focus is on the general fund overall. Some of the major items that I wanted to highlight in comparison to the last 4 years, so it's a comparison from 2016 to 2020. Most of the categories stayed relatively the same, with the exception of property taxes. Property taxes, you can see, the last couple of years have increased due to the public safety millage that was enacted a couple of years ago. But the overall, the increase from last year to this year was an inflationary increase. And then also in the third column over, the overall grants and revenue, there was an increase again this year involving the COVID-19 grants that were received from the federal government, again associated with the federal programs audit that was done.
Hold on, back up. What is the $489,000 from the city of Plymouth dispatch contribution?
So those are the charges that are charged to the city, in part for the dispatch and fire services.
So that's a chargeback. And maybe Ginger can answer this. When will we be sending the reconciliation invoice for 2020 to the city of Plymouth?
We complete that nature annually after the audit and everything, so we've actually started that process. I'll be completing that reconciliation.
So it will be in the month of July.
Correct. I've already started to set that up.
Next slide highlights the property tax revenue, which is your largest source of revenue. And again, as mentioned in the previous slide, the last couple of years experienced an increase due to public safety millage. And overall, from 2019 to 2020, there was an increase due to inflationary adjustments. And basically just taxable values increasing. For your overall expenditures, this is a very similar slide as to the revenues. which compares the previous 4 years to 2020. The largest changes overall from last few years is notice in fire. In 2019, you had capital expenditures, fire truck in particular. 2020 returned a little bit back to normal, but overall, you can see that you had similar expenses as in the past. There was another decrease too in the last column, operating transfers, primarily debt payments related. There was a decrease due to debt and interest, or the principal being a little bit higher last year, which resulted in a payoff of one of the loans, and interest expense and the principal went down this year.
So on this slide, with the fire truck that cost $1 million, it's an installment, but is it accounted for as a $1 million purchase on this slide, or only the installment portion that was due in 2019?
The installment portion only.
All right.
For your general fund overall, something to highlight. So your overall fund balance, which is going to be a little bit more detailed on the next slide, your overall fund balance is a little bit over $5 million, about $5.5 million. Your unassigned, or what's available to spend, is about 3.3 at the end of the year in general fund, which represents about 19% of your expenditures, annual expenditures. Usually a question that I'm asked is, what's the right percentage of your expenditures? It's a tough question and tough answers, especially coming out of a pandemic. The answer varies, to be honest. Normally, the thresholds are anywhere from 10 to 20%, 25% even. So you're right in that window. I always look to see at the end of the year, and based on the timing of when you receive your property taxes, which is right after year end, is making sure that you at least have 2 to 3 months worth of fund balance to be able to expand on your coming up expenses. So, payroll, for example, which is the heaviest of the expenses. And 19% represents about 2.5 months. So you're right in that window where you should be. So just wanted to point that out.
So the 5.5 million is the fund balance, right? And,
Your total fund balance.
and 3.3 is unassigned, so
Correct.
2.2 is earmarked for some specific purpose.
Yep. So on the next slide, there's a restricted portions of fund balance.
Next graph.
And what happens is, so like the first portion is non-spendable, which is basically you've already spent $19,000 on prepaid expenses, so things that relate to 2021. Your restricted is based on its restrictions for PEG fees and construction code fees. And then the committed portion is public safety. So those items are spoken for a specific purpose. And then the unassigned amount of the 3.3 million you can spend on anything that's, I guess, in your budget for the following years.
For the prior slide, I didn't get my question soon enough. The signable expenses that we can, the 3.344, what do you attribute that increase from the last year in 2019?
So you did have, overall, your revenues were higher than your expenses during the year, during 2020. So you were able to add to your overall fund balance. And
Is that for the tax increase?
It wasn't specific to that, but it's just overall based on your revenues coming in. So it's various categories in comparison to the expenses. Your expenses were a little bit lower than your revenues during the year.
Thank you.
I believe it was about 900,000.
Martin, for 2021, when we received the $3 million in 2 payments, I don't know if it'll all be in 2021 from the Rescue Act.
2.8 million.
Yeah, just rounding. Will we put that in the fund balance until it's actually expended? Is that the way it will be accounted for?
To be honest, I don't know all the logistics yet of how it's supposed to act. It's supposed to be, so the township has to decide on how you're going to spend the money, first of all. So some of it may go to general fund, some of it may be related to water and sewer. There's different components to it. It just depends on how the township decides to spend it. It is going to be very likely subject to a federal single audit again when you spend the money. So it doesn't have to be done, so if you receive the money in 2 years, it's not based on when you receive the money, but when it's expended, that's when the single audit is going to occur. And if you spend it all throughout the next couple of years, it depends on, again, where it's going to fall, like what services and what projects you're going to pay for. That's where it's going to fall into. Most likely, if you receive the money and you spend it in the same year, it's not going to really affect your fund balance because it's just going to be revenue and expense at the same time. But if you receive the money up front and then it's gonna flush out to next year because you're gonna spend it next year, likely is gonna be a deferred revenue, so it's not gonna necessarily rest in your fund balance, it's gonna just rest on your balance sheet as a holding place until it's expended.
So it'll be considered deferred revenue. Because
Very
most
likely.
likely, we will not expend it in this calendar year, if it comes late especially.
Most likely not. Again, there's a lot unknown when it comes to the act, however, very likely you will not see necessarily a change in fund balance.
Ginger, do you have any comments on that question?
Basically what Mark was saying, we'll refund you this one.
Liability, not an asset.
Unearned revenue is a liability.
You'll have cash as an asset, and you'll also have that offsetting liability until it's spent. But again, it depends on which fund you're gonna put it in and how that's gonna be, so that's why the logistics of where that's gonna fall, it's gonna depend greatly on that.
Say that again, please. Unearned revenue is a liability?
Yeah, it falls out the balance sheet. Other revenues considered deferred revenue, it's a liability on our balance sheet.
Any other questions? Your overall legacy costs, so the pension and OPEB, you can see that the overall pension has remained roughly the same, as well as your OPEB. However, the funding, I did want to point out that, so the funding percentage for your pension is about 68% as of 12/31/20 in the financial statements. Prior year was 66%, so it increased slightly. Your OPEB, which, as you know, previously was not funded a couple years back, last year funding percentage was about 7.5%, 7.6%. This year went up to 14%. So you're definitely moving in the right direction when it comes to the OPEB.
So for retiree benefits, our original plan was to have the last payment in 2027. Is it shown in here somewhere that that is still on track? In other words, we will completely have paid off.
It's
or
not shown in the
completely
chart.
funded retiree pensions, defined benefit, by 2027.
That is not reflected in the charts or anything like that.
So Martin, I have a question about your graph. You said it's up 14%, but your graph makes it look like it's stagnant. So what am I looking at wrong?
Yeah, so unfortunately, there's a lot of things that come in from the actuary and the assumptions and things like that. So as you're funding the plan, the liability is adjusted slightly every year. The assets are slightly adjusted as well. The overall percentage funded did go up. Unfortunately, the unfunded amount is still relatively the same just because of the components of it changing.
So that would be a factor of more people entering the plan, higher healthcare costs.
As well as return on investment.
Longevity, pardon me?
So a very large component of the actuarial analysis is the return on investments as you're funding the plan. And I know that there's been changes over the last few years, especially, including last year, of the projected future investment. So that's where it has a really significant impact. As you stated as well, healthcare costs change as well. So those are the things that end up being adjusted. And mortality tables, I don't know if it was this year or a couple of years ago. I mean, it does impact quite a bit. It's a good thing that everybody lives longer. However, it has drastic impact on the pension and OPEB liability in general.
So is it also a factor then of where that money's being invested? So are there market forces involved?
There's market forces involved. The good news is that the significant dip that we saw in March of 2020 and April in the market, that rebounded by year end. And some of these assumptions are still not, the actuarial analysis, there's some lagging, there's also smoothing effects, so that way you're not seeing huge jumps year over year. But those are the best estimates as of year end, as of now. You're definitely moving in the right direction. So pension in general, everybody would like to be 100% funded in both. I understand that. But you're definitely in the ballpark of where you should be at a minimum. You're actually above that. I believe the state minimum is, they're trying to do above 60%, so you're definitely in that. The OPEB, the state's trying to get everybody above 40%. And again, you're moving in the right direction, realizing that a couple of years ago you were 0% funded. So it's an important thing to note because you're definitely making the strides to be in compliance.
Okay.
Just a follow-up comment on that. there's a lot of things that are out of our control when it comes to the unfunded liabilities. We can't control what the actuarial assumptions are. We can't control what the market returns on our investments. What we can control are two things. Number one, every year on the pension, to answer your question, Chuck, they recalculate what our monthly payment will be into the pension fund based upon the previous year's audit. So we continue to make those payments as required for the pension. The other thing we can is the voluntary contributions that we've been making to the OPEB fund. So we put in $1.2 million the first year, $1 million the second year. We put in $250,000 this year, which is all part of the corrective action plan that we submitted to the state and got approved. So, and we continue to be on course with that, and we'll achieve the 40% funding within about another 15 years. So we're still in good shape. As Martin said, moving in the right direction.
I don't remember the exact time period that the state's allowing for the corrective action plan, but it might be even 30 or 40 years. So you're definitely way ahead of that.
Yeah, they wanted it within 30 years, and we submitted a plan that got us there in about 25. Yep.
And just as a reminder that none of the new federal money can be used for pension funding, and I would presume OPEB as well.
Correct, as of right now.
Yeah.
And I don't expect any changes when it comes to that, but.
I don't either.
So there was a decision made on OPEB
Yeah.
for Rescue Act?
Yeah.
That's
All right,
correct.
I wasn't aware of that, that was up in the air.
Yeah.
And of course, we need to, thank the public for passing the millage a couple years ago, which was the main reason for the millage, was that we were going to be forced by the state to take some really draconian actions. And the public stepped up, realizing that the previous boards had made promises but didn't fund the OPEB appropriately, left it barren for years and years. And the public stood up when we asked them to. We explained it to them. Mark Clinton, the treasurer, laid out the plan of how we were going to correct this, and the public responded appropriately to, and we do thank you for that.
All right, since we're on this, then, the Act 202, the Form 5572 that we have to file by the end of June, has it been filed, or when will it be filed, and where will it be on our website?
Yes, it was filed. It's in the documents section on our website. You can look it up
Under documents.
under documents. Yeah.
What month did it get filed?
Oh, I probably submitted that, I have to wait till the audit is done. I probably submitted it about 3 weeks ago.
Good.
Okay.
Taking a step back from the general fund, the water and sewer fund activity, just want to point out that overall revenues increased a little bit from last year. Your operating expenses stayed relatively flat from the year before, and your unrestricted net position is noted here at 17 million. That is net of the investment in Watua, because you can't really, so if you look at the financial statements, the net position actually shows as a higher dollar amount. It's because the Watua investment's in there. You can't really spend the Watua investment, so that's why we subtract it out. So that way, just for illustration purposes. And that money can be spent on future projects, improvements within the township in the water and sewer. And then the solid waste disposal fund activity, you can see very similar to last year. Your overall expenses and revenues were very similar, almost in balance, and your overall net unrestricted position is about $233,000. So that's all I had on the slides.
So Martin, do you want to talk about the other federal audits, or
Single audit?
what that was all about?
I can, just
So we're done with everything else? So questions on,
Yep, so I have a couple documents to go over, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you have those.
so you're gonna do the single audit and then come back to the other 4 documents we have?
Yeah, so the first, the thickest of documents was basically covered through the charts, but if there's any specific questions that you have on the financial statements, I'm happy to address those.
Okay, page 41 of the financial report with supplemental information. It's the thickest document.
Yes.
Page 41, it talks about defined contribution plan, I'm confused. I thought we got rid of John Hancock, or do we still have them? It says the benefits are administered by John Hancock. I thought it was MERS.
It changed over early last year.
Okay, so it is MERS.
It is
Yeah.
MERS.
All right.
The handover occurred in the first quarter of 2020.
Yeah, it was middle of February.
Yeah.
February 2020, okay. There might be something else.
Anything else?
Not right now. I mean,
Anybody else on the board?
By the way, when I was discussing the assumption changes in actuarial analysis, if you're interested in seeing exactly what happened, on page 45 in the middle of the page, you'll see the assumption changes for the pension plan. And then for the OPEB, you'll see the same thing in, on page 49 towards the top. Just want to highlight that. The federal awards supplemental information report that we issued, again, no findings during the testing for the single audit. In total, the township did receive and expand about $1 million, a little bit over $1 million in with grant money. Majority of it came from the U.S. Department of Treasury related to COVID-19 coronavirus relief fund. There was about $700,000 in total, so we're close to that. So I just wanted to point that out. But again, no findings or anything like that. So it's one of the shorter reports that I've seen with a single audit, because normally there's a finding, we disclose that.
But next year is going to be a different story, because we'll be dealing with the money that we got this year plus the money that we expect to get in the future on the COVID relief.
Correct, and it depends on how much you spend. So if you spend over $750,000 in any given year, that triggers the single audit. If you're under that threshold in expenditures again, then you don't go through the single audit. That's why the single audit only occurs every so many years. Most communities within the state of Michigan, I've noticed that they're going through the single audit this year just because of the Coronavirus Relief Act.
If we don't spend over 750, the excess amount from the 1,089,049, do we get to keep that? Or does that go back to the state?
No. So like the full amount you get to keep and you spent it. If cumulatively, all your grants that you receive from the federal government, so it's not state driven, it's from the federal government. If you spend more than $750,000 cumulatively, that triggers just the audit. It doesn't mean that you keep the money or expend it, like you spent the money already. It's just a matter of if you have to go through the testing or not. Mm-hmm.
So just to echo a thank you to all the cast of dozens that you listed off, because I was here in years when things were not so clean and there was some ugliness for several years on the way these audits came out. So thank you.
So Mark, how many years have you been auditing for the township? I think it's about 21.
Well, Heffernan was, you were.
Not quite that old.
Not you.
No, I haven't been here quite. Plant Moran, it's probably around 20, I'm guessing.
I believe you started in 1998, so it's 21 years.
More than 20.
Me personally, probably around 10 years, 12 years, something like that. Then we have a rotating staff. So the other thing is that what we do is we have a rotating staff normally. Then we also have quality control that's above me that makes sure that I do everything correctly and so on. So and we make sure that it's a different person pretty much every year.
When you're done with this thing.
Absolutely. And then the last document that I wanted to cover is the post-audit letter, the management letter. It's probably around 10 pages long or so. I did want to point out it has two different sections. The first section starts on page 2, and basically it's a response to the pre-audit letter that you would have received. The pre-audit discussed, the audit process, asked the trustees to comment on any items that the trustees would like us to visit in a little bit more detail. Trustee Kermy did ask us to look over a couple things. One was regarding pay related to automobile use, personal automobile use, and then also a payment in lieu of healthcare costs. So we did do a sample testing for those items, and then we found that you're withholding the appropriate amount of FICA, et cetera, and it's included in the W-2 wages. So we did not find any issues or anything like that.
That was a sample, you didn't audit 100% of the.
That is correct. We did, there was a smaller number of the personal use of automobiles, so we actually did test all the individuals that were involved for that. So the first section talks about basically in response to the pre-audit letter. It's essentially, I would say, boilerplate. It does talk about, it asks, if there's any difficulties found during the audit, if we found any uncorrected or any issues that we have to adjust financial records or anything like that. And I'm happy to let the trustees know that there were no adjustments or any disagreements or anything like that as a result of the audit. And then on page 4, section 2, are legislative and informational items. These are just updates from around the state and the country. So the first item, which has been a hot topic since March of 2020, is COVID-19. And we at Plant Moran have developed a resource center. So there's a lot of links, and the PDF that you have actually has live links, so you can click on and see what any new updates regarding the CARES Act, just everything that's coming down from the federal government as well as the state government. So we have all the resources that are in here. And then also there's websites are listed here.
So on our website, these links will be live?
I don't know how it was posted. I know that the final documents that were emailed to the township, they have live links, so you can.
And we always post obviously the audit information, but I don't think we have any intention
So the
of
links aren't
posting
live, so okay, so we just have to type it in.
Yeah, we don't intend on you want us to post the federal COVID
Well,
links?
no, this page, like page 4, see how it has the live links?
Yeah.
I'm happy
Is
to
it
email.
posted on our website with the live links or just
No, I mean, that would be posted, I believe, as a PDF. So,
PDF?
yeah.
Okay.
So if it's the original PDF that was emailed from us, it will have the live links. So if you posted that, it will have the live
Okay.
links.
Before you leave page 4, the section on MLTS E911, I don't understand this. Does this mean that we need to follow up with businesses that have more than
No,
the recommended number of lines?
no, we don't have to.
Public Act 30.
Yeah, I know a lot about this particular legislation. And basically it says that if you have a call, let's say for example, a call came in from a healthcare facility that had an outpatient clinic that had 4 floors or something. It's not enough to say that it came from 123 Main Street. It has to say which floor and which section of the floor at the 911 dispatch center. But
So what does that mean? Implications for us?
for us, it's, I believe that we have to report, don't we, Chief?
Dan's been working on that one.
This is the bottom of page 4, under Public Act 30, MLTS E911.
911.
And
So-
it says here in the sentence, the regulations would apply to any workspace larger than 7,000 square feet,
But
with a
the-
compliance deadline of December 31, 2020.
Yes, but the question is, so there's 2 parts to that question. Number one is how does it apply to us as users of a phone system? And is this building more than 7,000 feet?
This building?
Yeah.
This building meets the requirements of that when we put the new phone system in. In spite of the requirements, we made all township buildings meet the requirements of this law.
But if we get a call into the dispatch center from an outside entity, and that entity is not properly identified the location codes for that device, do we have a duty to report that to the state of Michigan? Somebody told me we did.
That would be a Cindy Fell question, and we would have to check with her. But as of right now, that law was not extended, but certain portions of it were.
Oh, they were?
Till 2021. Yeah, they made the buildings can be larger. I think the last time they changed it. There's a couple other alterations that were made to get the law passed based on some large factories in the middle of the state.
Right, but we have to understand that question, whether if a call comes in from a dispatch center and it's at,
Do we have to report it? Yeah,
Quick
we'll
mark.
ask that question.
Yeah, We need to find that out.
So Martin, why is this in the document? So does it want us to take action?
No, we want to make sure that you're aware of it. So the Plymouth Township is definitely in compliance with your buildings, but we just want to make sure that you're aware of it.
Because we would have some liability
If you weren't in compliance yourself.
if the township wasn't in compliance, but we're not
I don't
assuming
believe there's any
liability
liability if somebody
if
else.
Wabasto is not in
No.
compliance or somebody, okay.
No.
Okay, so this
We
is
just want to make
written,
sure that you were aware of the law.
Okay.
That's all.
Well, if we weren't in compliance, would you let us know?
If you
For your
were
audit?
not in compliance, and if we found out, that we would definitely let you know.
Thank you.
But you're not auditing our phone system.
We're not, no.
No.
We do some testing on like IT and different things, so we go above just the financial component.
Yeah,
But it's mostly focused on the impact on your financial records versus
Right.
all around.
right.
okay, so the same page 4 talks about cybersecurity. We were planning on doing analysis of our system to see how bulletproof it is from ransomware and other attacks. When will we see that?
We probably don't want to announce that if we're not.
Well, no, but
We're working
no, it's
on
our job to make sure somebody's working on it.
We're working on it.
And it will be done.
We've had internal meetings with IT, internal that would be myself, Mark, and Bob, and we're working on it. But we don't want to disclose too much else.
Trustee Dorchevitz.
That's why I said Bob.
The
There's
Bobs.
Bob Jenks, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, I meant Bob Dorchevitz.
Yeah.
That is definitely a hot topic nowadays, especially over the last 12 months or so.
Yeah, like today.
It's definitely been an uptick, so we just want to make sure.
Yeah,
Another one today?
today's been a mess.
Was there another
All
one?
sorts of cyber attacks and ransomware
yeah.
on media, other businesses around the country.
So again, I just want to highlight, because I know some communities are not really taking the steps, kind of hoping that everything's fine. So we just want to make sure that you're aware and something that's top of mind as well. And
Hope
if there's
is
any
not a
questions, that we do have
strategy.
a team that can help out or answer any questions.
Well, because smaller communities a lot of us don't have the firepower to do what needs to be done from both, what do we do technically, how much is it gonna cost, how much money should we set aside for it, what's it gonna do to our internal operating systems, our own ability to communicate with one another. I mean, I'd be happy to, we would be happy, our little team would be happy to talk to you offline about that, because I don't want to get into strategy. But it makes us all nervous, and we want to do the right thing, but we want to get it right the first time, because there seems to be no room for error,
I absolutely agree. And like I said, we do have a team that actually, so one, they can answer your questions for you, but they can help out with any
Okay.
process that you may need help with.
Well, maybe we should put the money aside, if maybe some of the Rescue Act money could be spent on hardening our system. Because we will have the resources, and it is a form of infrastructure.
As of now, and that's a great creative argument, I like that, infrastructure. Right now, though, I'm not really seeing that. I'm seeing broadband, but only in the sense that that a community could provide broadband to its residents. That really doesn't apply to us. Where I think we could get the funding, Ginger, and I don't want to put you on the spot tonight, but maybe out of the PEG grants, because that could be in the gray area, but maybe out of PEG grants, maybe out of the federal funds. It's just, we can't determine that right now. I do think that as we get into the budget drafts, the budget deliberations this summer, both internal and external, that we have to start probably putting some money aside. I don't know how much. Maybe if, Martin, if you could give us an idea of what comparable communities are doing, I don't know, but.
Yeah, I'd have to check with my team, but I'd be happy to have that conversation.
Northville, Plymouth City, comparable communities. Okay,
Only main item that I wanted to cover, additional item in the letter, is the updated Uniform Chart of Accounts, which is coming a little closer. It kept on getting extended by the state of Michigan. It's actually supposed to be in effect within the next year and a half, I believe, or so. And I did want to point out that the township's already looking at that and making those changes, so definitely on top of it.
What page is it on that you're talking about?
That is on page 5, right in the middle, updated Uniform Chart.
Ginger and her team are working diligently on updating the Charter of Accounts, and I think, Ginger, what's an estimated due date?
Oh, we've actually already submitted our chart to the software vendor, We have received our first testing file back. I made some corrections to the file, sent that back actually this morning to BSNA. And I'm waiting now on a testing file to come back. I expect that we will probably be doing the conversion sometime close to the end of the month.
Okay, so there you go.
Guess they're right on top of it.
She is way ahead of it, as always, so thank you.
And that's all I had. Like I said, I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
I just have a simple one on boilerplate on page 1. The second paragraph on the bottom. This report is intended solely for the members of the Board of Trustees and the management and not intended. Doesn't this document get used by bonding agencies?
Usually it's the financial statement, not the post-audit letter.
And the citizens are probably a user of it, right?
If the township chooses to put it on the website, then they can utilize it as well.
Yeah, I think we should.
We do.
We're putting it on the website, right?
Pardon me? It's part of the package, we put it on the
It's
website.
completely up to the township,
Yeah, no, we
but
always
it's
do.
not something that necessarily gets
We always do.
distributed and.
Okay, so here's a Rescue Act question. We're spending about $250,000 on sidewalk gaps this year. Can we use some of the Rescue Act money for that sidewalk gap that the work isn't done yet? It won't be done till September. So is that allowed, or you don't know?
As of now, we do not know the answer. I have a meeting.
That might be another shopping thing, the shopping list.
Oh, no, we have an extensive list of what we would like to see the COVID money used for. I have a meeting next Tuesday with Wayne County and congressional officials, and then on Friday, we have the Conference of Western Wayne meeting, which will be probably exclusively dedicated to this topic on what we can spend and not spend. Conference of Western Wayne asked for questions from all of the community representatives with respect to questions that we have. What can we spend the money on? So our top one was the sidewalk gap issue. We had some other items as well, ranging from new senior buses to, the fences at Township Park, improvements to the Gulfview Park.
The board gonna be in on the brainstorming?
I can give you my email list that I gave to the Conference of Western Wayne, but this is just, it's a wish list at this point. We don't have any firm direction from anybody in Washington. The best that we know right now is that they're saying broadband, water, sewer, and then any other extreme healthcare expenses. But that would only apply to communities that would have a health department or a community that administered widespread COVID vaccines. We're just not in that category. So then there's also this whole issue about how are we going to determine revenue loss? And I don't know if we had revenue loss for 2020. I know a lot of communities that certainly did. But now I've been told that the feds want us to use a formula. And this formula would be some mix of the formula plus our budget for 2020 plus revenues plus expenditures. I don't know exactly how that formula is going to work, but what we were told was at the end of the day, every community in Michigan is going to have revenue loss, okay? They're going to make sure that we've all had revenue loss. Then it's that revenue loss that you can use to spend on possibly on infrastructure like sidewalks, bridges, fences, parking lots, rehabilitation, pathways, things like that. So it's very much in flux at this point. So let's just pretend for a moment that we get $2.8 million. Let's say we can spend $500,000 on sidewalk gaps. That still leaves us with a lot of money left over. We may be limited to spending the rest of that money, which is sizable. We may only be limited to water and sewer at that point. So that's where we are going to have to get even more creative on how we want to handle that. I know Pat Felrath, our DPW director, we have lead water lines in the township. We have lead water lines. So we have some lead lines that need to be replaced. We have some other projects on Patrick's wish list, okay? Another option would be, do we just write a check to Watua and put that into our capital expenditures for the future for Watua? So again, a ton of questions that are unanswered. As soon as we get them, we'll You know, we'll all learn hopefully around the same time. But what I'd like to do is hopefully in the fall, have my goal, Chuck, was to have a study session this summer and bring in Colleen Pober, bring in somebody from, maybe from Stabenow's office or what's his name? Haley Stevens and Senator Peters. Bring somebody in from those offices so that we could ask questions and get answers and be able to get a firmer idea of where we can spend that money. And that's just the COVID money. We're also getting money from SMART for transportation services. That's about $22,000 or $32,000. Yeah, 20-something. And that money is dedicated solely to the Friendship Station because the Friendship Station has now been designated a transportation hub. And so we can use
We've always got
COVID money.
we've gotten 20 to 30,000 for years.
We've had SMART credits, then that's a different animal. So we always get the SMART credits, but this is going to be in addition to that. It's a reimbursement fund.
So this Rescue Act, that document, it's 150 pages long.
Yeah, that was the first version. I'm sure there's several. I'm sure
It's
there's
good
been
nighttime reading.
There's been several amendments since then.
I'm assuming there's gonna be definitely edits coming up still.
Oh, yeah.
So even if, and I know we've had some discussions with the township over the last couple of months and, making that dream list of what you'd like to spend the money on and, evaluating it, checking it, again, there's gonna be amendments coming up. So potentially some of the items that you wanna do that do not qualify right now, they will qualify ultimately.
There will also be state COVID money that will be available, and there will be county COVID money. So the county is getting almost $400 million. I'm sure they'll not spend any of that here. And then there will be state money. So for example, like the MITC, we're going to the state, Northville and Plymouth, and the land bank, we're going to the state of Michigan and saying, okay, why don't you provide $10 million to the MITC so we can rebuild 5-mile install water and sewer lines, and then we'll reimburse you over the next 30 years, which is why that Brownfield Authority was created in the first place. So we're all trying to be creative. I've got like general fund list, I've got money from the county, money from the state, and then maybe down the road we will see the other huge spending bill, which is the infrastructure bill. That's the next round. Yeah, it's either, it's gonna be somewhere around $1 trillion and God knows what our share of that's gonna be, or if that will all be absorbed by the state or by the county, who knows?
So the forecast is there's a lot of money that's going to be raining down upon us.
Raining down.
Pretty much with limitations on what you can spend on. Nobody knows 100% where you can spend it on. It's a good problem to have, though. It's just a matter of figure out the projects and making sure that you do spend it to better the township.
Yeah.
Till our children have to pay it back.
Yeah, that's the downside.
No, you'll live long enough that you get to pay it back.
Okay, so Martin, anything else for us?
That's all I had, unless you had any other questions. I did want to say thank you again for all the help. We appreciate working with the township. We try and make it as easy as possible, but an audit's an audit, and we realize it's above and beyond the normal responsibilities for, those involved. So we realize it's a burden on the township. So we definitely thank you for all the help in making sure that this gets accomplished in a timely manner and filed on time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and again, thank you to Ginger and her team. The level of detail that she has put into this, I mean, long hours, making sure that literally every penny was accounted for is going back several years. And we found some other little gems from the past that we had to resolve. But she got through it all and really has done an awesome job for us and made your life easier too, I'm sure. Okay.
But when's the invoice coming?
It already came.
It already came. We prepaid you, all right.
When all the work was being done.
Okay. All right, I think we're all set. Any comments from the public on this one, on the audit? Okay. So in our, it did not make it into the agenda pack, but we do have the resolution here. This resolution is required to adopt the audit, and I can make the motion myself, or Jerry, do you want to do it?
I'd love to do it.
Jerry can do it. Turn your mic on.
Yes. Mr. Supervisor, I move that the Plymouth Township Board of Trustees hereby adopt Resolution 2021-06-07-39, approving the audit for fiscal year 2020 SEFA, and financial statement reports, letters of required communication to be filed with the state of Michigan by Plant Moran, and to acknowledge the receipt and file of the previously stated.
Okay, motion's made by Clerk Vorba. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Monahan. Mr. Clerk, please take
When
the
does it
roll.
have to be filed?
By the 30th.
About 30.
June 30th?
We're going to do it right away.
You'll do
Tomorrow.
it for us.
Please take the roll.
Clerk Vorba, yes. Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Trustee Monahan.
Yes.
Trustee Dorchevitz.
Yes.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Martin. Public.
Bye, Martin. Good to
item-
see you.
Item G is public comment, limited to 3 minutes. Anybody else at this time? Yeah. We do need your, we just need your name for the record. We're still
No,
unsure
wait
on
till your, yeah,
addresses.
if you say your name right there.
Pardon?
We just want to speak into the microphone so we know that.
Rich Childs.
Thank you, good.
But we should be able to hear you with, you don't have to.
You have to lean over.
into it. It's a new system, so we're
I
still,
can usually project.
we're
enough to
learning
hear me.
as well.
First off, I appeal to you and commend you for trying to be good stewards of our money. That's where all of this comes from. Part of what I saw up here with his report, I'm curious with water and sewer, that looked like the revenue streams were fairly flat over the last few years. Anecdotally, when I look at my own bill, I'm using 30% less water because 4 kids are not in the house anymore, yet my bills are still the same, if not higher. So I would expect that number to be more significant. And again, Mark, you see the numbers, but it's, it's based on, you gotta go over to the water department and see. I haven't looked to see what the physical charge is. All I'm looking at is a raw number. I used to use 18 units, now I'm using 10 to 12, but my bill is the same. So again, anecdotally, that tells me that something's amiss there. The numbers you've got should be bigger. So maybe there's something to look at.
I had this same discussion over the weekend with some neighbors who were down in Florida during the winter and came back to a big water bill, and they said, I don't understand this. I wasn't even home. But the reason for it is we get charged by GLWA. We buy our water wholesale from GLWA. The way they charge us is 60% fixed costs and 40% usage. So if we never, in the township, never turn on a faucet, we still get charged 60% of the revenue. So what we do with our pricing model, and there's always room for improvement, is we charge a minimum amount of water. So whether or not you ever turn on your faucet, you're being charged 10,000 gallons. Basically 10,000 gallons of use for the quarter. So that's why these people who go to Florida and never turn on their faucet are still getting a minimum usage bill for their water.
When they're charging you, is it still set up the way it had been in the past where there's one use day? I remember when they were doing the underpass over here and we got screwed on that because the day they picked as the choice was probably the highest used for the year.
Peak day, peak hour.
Peak day, peak, yes, that's exactly right, but you never know what it's going to be. So what you have to do is you have to anticipate when you're negotiating the rates with GLWA, what that peak is going to be. And then you learn after the fact what the peak day and the peak hour was. It's a crazy system. Patrick Fellrath, who manages our DPW, does an incredible job. He walks around with his laptop all summer long and monitors the usage of the water and then drains those big towers that you see, because we fill those up at night and then he drains them and monitors this. A big chunk of the reason that we've kept our water rates so reasonable in the township is because he does an outstanding job of monitoring the usage of our water and making sure that we don't exceed those peak usages during hot summer months.
Okay.
But that question, though, was a little different in the sense that our water rates have gone up, and if you assume the consumption is the same across the entire township, how come the revenues?
We as a board have only increased water rates once since we've gotten in here, since 2016.
One time.
Only one time?
Yeah. And my recommendation for this year, which will be on the, with July agenda, will be not to increase water rates again.
That's outrageous.
It's crazy. Yeah.
And what if we can spend COVID money on it? Then we can get it. But we
And
can't
that's
use,
gonna be
we
interesting.
can't use COVID money to provide refunds or rebates or anything like
No,
that.
but when you get answers, as you've all asked, to where you can spend that COVID money, I think everyone here is gonna be smiling.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully it's not as restricted as I expect it will be.
We agree.
Beyond that, just let me, okay, the dollars, no charge. The only other thing, back to being good stewards of our money, some of the other people talked. I came tonight again because of this tree ordinance. Just look at it long and hard. I know you indicated that right now with the changes, you're not looking at fines, et cetera, but as a couple of the other residents had indicated, I'm a realtor. I'm protective of property rights. And when I looked at that, at initial blush, it's like, this is ridiculous. People are gonna move in. I mean, the conversation I had this evening, I planted 25 arborvitaes along with a couple other trees last year. The permit fee you were talking about was gonna be more than I was paying for trees. So just be
Not gonna
conscious
happen.
of that.
That's not gonna happen, so.
Okay,
And you did a great job on those trees, too.
thank you. Kathy Pumphrey used to beat me up because she thought that I had stuff in the backyard she didn't want to see, so. And Chuck, I don't see you every day, just sometimes walking on the street, so I don't have anything to beat you up.
All right. Everybody loves me today.
Thank you.
It's nice to be loved.
While we're on this, did you guys notice, well, I'll talk about it at the comments section.
I just wondered the timing on the tree ordinance, the final
Sure.
timing, if the public would be notified and we would actually be able to see the draft before it goes forward. And, I mean, my concern was that, so you consulted the city, and the city actually consulted their people, but the township didn't consult their people.
Okay,
So-
that's not true, and that's argumentative. So let me tell
No,
you.
that's what I read in your, that's what I read
Okay.
in this. It said, I consulted.
Okay, but you're,
the
but
city.
you're adding stuff too. So the tree ordinance, I don't want to beat this to death tonight, but the tree ordinance in the city of Plymouth was actually, it was approved by the city commission, I want to say like in 2017, and then it was removed, it was repealed because it was unmanageable, and then they adopted this new one, which I believe was a 5-2 vote. It was not unanimous. There were a lot of concerns expressed at that time. I've read all of the newspaper articles that came out at that time regarding the adoption of that ordinance. When I met with the people from the city, I met with them because I had their ordinance in hand. I had a lot of questions. So I wanted to see, how are you guys administering this? What are the pros and cons? What are the lessons learned? You know, unfortunately with, you know, that their ordinance was adopted in 2019, and then of course we had COVID. So, you know, they couldn't give you me a great example of how it's being administered right now. But, you know, they gave me the pros and cons of how they're dealing with it right now. And a lot of that I took to heart, and a lot of it's reflected in the latest draft of the ordinance. So, I mean, that's all. It's not a...
The question was, are we going to know when you're going to proceed?
Sure.
And then are you going to let the public know?
Sure,
I
absolutely.
understand like where you got your template and
Okay.
how you proceeded. I completely disagree with everything in
Okay.
this. Yeah, but if
So to-
going forward, I'd like to understand.
Sure, so what's
like,
gonna
what
happen,
your
what's
plan
gonna
is.
happen next, it just so happens that we've got a meeting scheduled tomorrow. I have a meeting with our attorney and our planner, and we're gonna go through another draft. I've given some ideas on what that draft's gonna look like. My hope would be that we can get the changes made, sort of a red line strikeout version. I would give it to the board electronically. It would, you know, if they want to give it to you, that's up to them. But I want to get their feedback because I look at them as my client. You know, I'm the lawyer and they're my client. So I want to make sure that I'm providing them with a good work product that they
No, I mean
that
to
they
the
can live
public,
with.
not just to me.
At some point,
Yeah,
we
to
may
the
have a
public.
study session, or we may bring it back. I plan on bringing it back to the board. I don't know what day that's going to be. So it could be in July, it could be in August. But then at that point, we'll have more discussion and review, and that'll be properly posted. We post our meeting notices on Friday morning. That is unheard of. You know, in the old days, before we came here, it was like, where's Waldo? We had to find the agenda, you know, late on a Sunday night or something like that.
That's not.
So,
Not true.
true, I did it.
Delivered on Friday.
They were delivered to you, but they weren't posted online until Sunday night, because I was trying to find those agendas. So, anyway, that's what's going on. Okay, anybody else?
Now I have questions. So in the ordinance, you had section 98.28 through 98.50 that are reserved. What does that mean?
That's standard ordinance drafting. Every time an ordinance is drafted by a local government anywhere in Michigan, that's the boilerplate that surrounds it. It provides additional flexibility if and when a municipality wishes to amend or add to an ordinance in the future. Any ordinance amendment, though, requires a vote of the Board of Trustees or the City Council.
Why don't they just leave it at the end one, 27 or something like that? Why do you leave, why is it left, what's the legal jargon and the reason behind leaving it open?
Then I will yield to the attorney.
It's because certain portions of the ordinance are put under different sections. So the current tree ordinance, or the last one that was put out there, was divided into 3 divisions. If you want to amend, say, Division 2, you have to save some room in Division 2 to amend it. You don't want to go into Division 3. It's just, it's a formatting thing only.
But it all has to be approved and everything before someone fills in these blanks.
Absolutely. It's got to go to the board. It's got to go through 2 readings and 2 approvals by the board before the ordinance would be officially amended.
All right. Second question. So everybody is sitting here and they're so gleeful about this COVID money that's coming from the federal government. But it seems to me, now see, we all know this is fiat currency. So it seems to me you're gleeful about getting this money that you can put into your coffers to spend on whatever projects. And it's almost like typical government where it's like, well, we got to spend it and all that stuff and that. But in the background, doesn't this come from increases in the taxpayer dollars to go back through and...
Absolutely, and talk to your congresswoman or the President of the United States.
So
We
this is
didn't
going
do
to
it.
sound quite silly and everything and quite counterintuitive, but when does it become sane, if you will, for local governments just to say, no, we don't want it? Yeah, and is that a completely illogical question?
I'm not sure.
If you look at the long term?
No, it's a legitimate question. I don't know the answer completely. I don't know. There may be a restriction in the federal law that prevents us from rejecting it. I don't believe that we should reject it because I think that this is what the public wants, and they've expressed that through their votes in 2020.
All right, well, if the public wants this, and this money's coming back here, instead of taking and putting it towards infrastructure, is there a way that we can look at the people and find out personally the constituents who was harmed most by this and help the people out instead of the township?
Well, larger cities and not townships, but larger cities like Dearborn, Livonia, there are provisions in that federal money that where cities can provide relief to local businesses, restaurants, shops, and others that were directly impacted by COVID. Small business.
Good.
I don't know if I don't believe that a community of our size has that ability. We don't have a community development department, okay? Some people think we do, but we don't. We don't have the ability to administer federal grants to outside entities like that. And also, we're not getting that kind of money. I believe City of Livonia is getting $9 million. Canton Township is getting, I think, over $6 million. So it depends on the size of your community and your ability to administer those funds. And again, everything I've said is subject to change by Congress or by the U.S. Department of Treasury.
Clichaically, it all sounds like, robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Call your congresswoman, so.
All right, thank you.
All right. Okay, anybody else? All righty. Okay, board comments. Bob Dorshevitz.
Thank you to the fire department for completing the vaccinations.
All right.
How
John?
many did you do?
Today, we did 60, but in total, I don't have a full number. We went through at least 1,000 ourselves with our ancillary kit, but we also participated at Schoolcraft College, Salem High School, Plymouth Canton Summit. So probably all told, probably about 6,000 shots, not individuals, because each person got 2 shots. We were strictly did the Pfizer vaccine inside of Plymouth Township. We did do Moderna at one of the clinics at Schoolcraft.
So maybe we can pay for some of that with the Rescue Act. It's a way
I
to get.
think we already did from the earlier round of money that we got.
You mean from
Chief?
From 2020?
From 2020.
Yeah, but we didn't pay for any of the vaccine, any
but
of
the labor, we
the
paid for
supplies,
the
nothing.
labor.
Yeah, the vaccine's free.
Right, but
Yes.
we paid for the labor to do it. So there's a way to use some of the Rescue Act.
Yeah, but it's got to be discernible. I don't know. If you have labor counts for the time spent, maybe you do. I don't know if that's eligible, though. Okay. All set, Bob?
All set.
Okay, John Stewart.
Real quick, a couple very refreshing emails and telephone conversations with Bill Dyer and Ron Lubata. I want to thank them for civil tongue. At 5 o'clock tonight, I attended a meeting. I don't know if any other trustees did, but it was with MDOT. And I have also made some contacts.
275.
And I will keep the supervisor advised because we need to be informed on details. I mean, we're going to see 56 bridges. We're going to see all of 275 in the next 4 years from 6 Mile down to Will Carlton. And I have some nice communications. I'm just going to leave it at that. I have some nice communications, and I will make a commitment to consult with the supervisor by a week from tomorrow.
And this is tense. I can't stand the anxiety.
Well,
Were the police and fire chiefs in that meeting with MDOT on I-275 construction?
The meeting for the pre-construction meeting hasn't happened yet. I just got the email for that yesterday.
Well, maybe not one involving you. There's been a lot of pre-con meetings with water, sewer, engineering, all those guys. I don't know what John's referring to. There was a MDOT virtual town hall tonight. I thought that was at 8 o'clock, though.
it was at 5 o'clock, and there was a lady from Bradbury with a very, apolitical, but with a very a strong concern about noise
Yeah.
and about traffic. Because we've got a huge, massive construction project going over there with Henry Ford Hospital, and we've got to make sure that our ingress, egress ramps are going to be clear.
Yep.
So
They're well aware.
we have, it's the old story, nothing is ever as easy as it seems.
Okay, Jerry Vorma.
Thank you very much, Mr. Supervisor. Just want to reiterate the good work that was done on the audit. Of course, that work is reflective of what went on all the year before. So everything was done appropriately. All the balancing of all the checkbooks throughout the township, entering in all the purchase orders and things of that sort were done appropriately all through the year. So the finance team and each one of the departments, the police and fire, everyone were doing their jobs appropriately all along, which allowed us to do that good work. And again, thank the treasurer for his work, and also Amy Hammy, his deputy. So just wanted to thank everybody again for the good work on the audit.
Okay. Mark Clinton.
Tax bills will go out in 3 weeks. Once again, I become the most popular guy in town.
Oh, no, that's me.
But they should hit mailboxes right around July 1st. That's it.
I was just thinking of that, Mark. When are those tax bills coming out? Just want to thank the fire department, all the people again for, protecting our communities. That's an awesome task. It's a lot of work. I know that personally. I also want to thank everyone who emailed us, the Board of Trustees, about the tree issue. Those of you that came here tonight that, appeared because it's that important to you. We take your comments very seriously, and thank you for doing that.
Okay, Chuck?
3 items. Did you note that we're having an August 24th meeting with the Planning Commission? I just found out about that.
Yes,
It's buried in the report here.
yeah, the current plan is a joint meeting with the Planning Commission. They've actually requested that. They just feel like they want to meet the new board members here, and there's a few new ones of their own, and just to talk, say hello, kind of hopefully share some goals and objectives.
That used to be done every year.
Yep.
All right, HVA contract. I'd like to see how's the work going and some type of timeline of checkpoints so that we get to the finish line. You're having a...
Yeah, I spoke with Andy Savage from HVA on this to work something out. HVA has a new director, so we started discussing it last week.
Okay, so you're on track for whenever the expiration is in September to have a renewal?
That's correct.
Proposal or whatever. Trash contract, I'd like to see the timeline for that one too. How are we doing?
Yeah, I want to put together a committee of people, maybe board members, Sarah Weissel, maybe some other members of the public to review who's out there and also gather some ideas on what you would like to see in a contract.
October 1 comes quick.
Well, it doesn't expire until next year.
Oh, I thought it was this year.
No. We're putting together the committee, the study committee now to, so that we can, we want to put together an RFP. We want to get some input on what people would like to see, especially like in the area of recycling and all that. It's very important, and make sure that it's actually being recycled. Anything else?
I have a quick question, if I may. Mr. Clinton,
The administration fee is used exclusively for funding the assessing department and the treasury department. It's part of the Michigan statute that's been in place for a long time. That's the financial model that was recommended and approved by the state. Because if you think about where your tax dollars are going, you don't want your tax dollars going towards administrative functions, which is assessing every property every single year and then sending out and collecting on taxes. And by the way, over 80% of the money that I collect doesn't even stay in the township. It goes to all the different taxing authorities, Wayne County, the state, the zoo, et cetera. So the financial model that they put in place for the administration fee is the administration fee covers the cost of assessing and treasury. And then that frees up that money for the tax dollars to be used for all the important things for the citizens of Plymouth Township, public safety, building department, et cetera.
Was this put in place and established and everything by the state during the time of previous administrations? Because this is something that...
It's always been in place. You have the option to adopt it or not adopt it. I don't have the exact figure, but I'll throw out a number of 95% of the communities in the state of Michigan have an administration fee. When I first got in office and I reached out to the MTA, which is the Michigan Township Association, and I talked to them about the administration fee, they said, well, everybody charges the administration fee. Then I did a poll of all the local communities, and the only one around here that does not is the city of Novi. But it's common practice. It's a financial model that's been in place for decades.
All right, point of clarification, Northville just repealed theirs, so they've taken it off, but remember that when you charge an administration fee, you can't charge Schoolcraft College, for example, $2 a parcel. So we took that off. So in the old way, you charge the other entities a fee, $2 per parcel, for example, to collect for the school district. But when you have an administration fee, you cannot charge that. So it's somewhat of it's a switchy, and it's not tax deductible.
So in previous administrations, it was being drawn from somewhere else.
Coming out of the tax dollars.
Okay, we're off format right now. So Chuck, do you have anything else?
No.
Okay.
Thanks.
So-
Perhaps I shouldn't be so vague, and I would like it in the minutes, Ms. Terrell. 2002, Senator McCotter and I worked together with the director of MDOT to get some sound barriers up on the east side of 275. Well, I pursued that this past week. And we're going to have some direct communications with Mr. Paul Ajigba, Ajegba, 31-year employee, and someone with a master's degree in construction engineering. And also, we're going to have some other top people that Kurt and I will have to appeal to at the top if we're going to get some extra treatment here on 275.
What is your proposal, to put up barriers, more sound barriers? Or you don't know yet?
I'm not at liberty to talk about it.
I know there's.
I want to make sure that what you're bringing to us is what we really want.
So we'll talk about that. I know I have I think you're referring to the same.
I'm not doing
email.
anything without the supervisor's
Yeah,
approval.
we have had some requests from residents there about sound barriers,
Well, and there's other issues.
bigger sound barriers.
I mean, taller?
Okay, maybe, okay. So, all set?
Done.
Okay. So it's my turn. Board agendas. We will meet again on June 22nd. We have 2 amendments to the MITC Brownfield Authority. Speed trailers. We're going to purchase some new speed trailers for the police department. Those are the things that tell you your speed, and it's a trailer. And then also consider the extension of the purchase agreement with Leo Gonzalez regarding the land surrounding the DPW.
Another one?
Yeah, another 6 months. This time he says he's going to provide us some a down payment though, so we'll see if he does that. And then maybe the Northridge parcel rezoning. It all depends on what happens at the Planning Commission. Planning Commission meets on the 16th, Bob, and that'll be the proposed rezoning for that.
So
for that
maybe
parcel.
June 22nd for that?
For us, yeah.
Wow,
Quick.
that's fast.
It is.
I'd ask you to slow it down a little bit.
Well, people want to get to work and build homes and create jobs. So, and then on July 13th, an update on the household hazardous waste program that we just finished, which was very successful. Mark will have his water rate recommendations, although you already told us tonight. So no fun there. And then we have to acknowledge the money that we're receiving from SMART for the COVID funding. And maybe we'll talk about the tree ordinance that night as well, but that's still a long way off. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved to adjourn.
Motion made by trustee Stewart. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Monahan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.